Hello and welcome back to WZ18, the Watford fan channel, and welcome to another video for what has been, quite an astonishing week following Watford, quite a controversial week as well. There's never a dull week supporting Watford, and with the two defeats against Liverpool, followed by the defeat against Leeds, the heavy defeat against Leeds. In between that, news came out of a supporter committee meeting. A statement was released on Friday night at 6 p.m, followed by a statement by Scott Duxbury the following morning discussing details of the supporter committee meeting. I'll admit, if you follow me on socials, you've probably seen it's been quite a difficult few days for me over the last few days, having seemingly taken the blame for a lot of what's been going on. But today, what I hope to do is sort of go through these committee notes and then take any questions that you all might have. I can expand on things that were said, or if you have any questions about the committee generally, then I will happily answer them. First of all, I'll touch on that Leeds game because Jacob and I are so busy at the moment, we just didn't have time to get a match review done. It was a difficult game for us. I didn't think Watford actually played too badly on the whole, but ultimately three individual errors, not just three individual errors, collective individual errors, led to 3 goals for Leeds United. We were defeated 3-0. For me, I think that pretty much confirms what the inevitable is, that Watford will be playing in the Championship next season. I think if we had any chance of staying up, I think we'd have had to win all of our home games. And we've already lost one of them. Have to look forward now to Brentford and sort of keep some sort of faith alive, but it's looking unlikely now. And I can't see us staying up. I don't think the team's been good enough over the season as a whole, and neither have the board. Scott Duxbury, Gino Pozzo haven't been good enough now, not just this season, but for a couple of years. And I thought, as we saw in the Norwich game, as we saw in the Leeds game, we've seen a few games this season, ultimately those errors came to the surface on the pitch on Saturday, and ultimately as supporters we paid the price. What this supporter committee meeting did was, and what the supporters committee can do, is effectively hold the board to account. So if we're unhappy with one of the answers they gave, or if they promised something in one of these meetings, all we can do at the following meeting is follow up on this. So let me, if I give an example going, this completely made up. If Scott Duxbury goes, we are 100% signing Lionel Messi in the next transfer window. Say we don't sign Lionel Messi, we can go at the next committee meeting, well, where's Lionel Messi then? You said we'd sign him, we didn't. It's a way of putting the board to account. I accept there needs to be a way of including more supporters and getting more supporters involved generally, where, there's sort of wider fan representation away from those who have public platforms, like ourselves here on WD18, like the guys from the Rookery and Do Not Scratch Your Eyes, fanzines, etc. There needs to be ways of getting sort of your standard season ticket holder involved, and on more of a collective scale. Just so before I sort of go into the meeting notes, I will just say that the club have reiterated that if you do want to get involved, to email supporters@watfordfc.com. They've said everyone is welcome. So genuinely, if you're unhappy with perhaps what was said in there, then please do get involved. Email the club, and I'm sure they will happily get you involved. So let's start having a look through the meeting notes before I'll take any questions that you'll have. I'm sure many of you have read through them, but I'll just sort of give a recap now anyway. So the first agenda, so the meeting took place on the 31st of March. And the first element of the agenda that was discussed was the academy. And sort of the broad question was asked, what more can be done to bring more players through the academy? Jacob and I have often discussed, we can't really think of any sort of really good academy products that have come through since Tommy Hoban and Jonathan Bond. Obviously, we had Joseph Hungbo last season, but he's not properly homegrown. We signed him from the Crystal Palace Academy. And there was quite a bit of frustration with that. And Scott Duxbury answered this question, and he's saying that they are keen to get more academy players involved. He held his hands up in there and said it's not been good enough, and we need to get more players involved. With the new sort of management team involved, in the academy, such as Richard Johnson in there and a couple of other ex-players who really understand the ethos of the football club and what it means to play for Watford Football Club. They're really hoping that we can sort of bring through more academy players. Now, they're hoping to bring at least 3 academy players into the squad for next season, regardless of what league we're in. And I mean, we've seen already Shaq Ford is now getting a place in the first team as well. So they are already in a way delivering on that promise about the academy. But effectively, they want everyone in Watford, every young boy and every young girl of say the ages of 6 to 14 years old. They want them believing that they can play for Watford. And if you're in Watford, you should have a chance of playing for us. And that leads sort of to and that means there needs to be a clear pathway from the academy into the first team. And ultimately, that's why academy players are dropping out, because they're not seeing that clear path. And that's something that needs to change. And they held their hands up to that. And it's something they're hoping to change in the future. And following that, I think comes sort of, with that clear route into the first team, came the question, the inevitable one of managers. If, for example, if academy players, a reason the academy players can't see a path into the first team is because the manager's changing every 5 minutes. Again, Scott Duxbury held his hands up to that, saying that there needs to be a change of strategy in there, and we perhaps need someone longer term. There were no names mentioned in terms of next season. I highly doubt. I got the impression as well that Roy Hodgson won't be staying on next season for various reasons. But they like sort of the mould of Eddie Howe in terms of what he did at Bournemouth, in terms of the way that players would want to stay to play for Eddie Howe because they could see that they were clearly improving under that manager. They could sort of see that, even if they were going through a rough period, they'd stay and improve under Eddie Howe. And that's sort of the mould that they're looking for. Someone who can have a long-term project at the football club where players will say, all right, I'm going to stick around here. We look at Josh King, who's our player now, who turned... he didn't go to Man United. Callum Wilson had chances to move away. Ryan Fraser. Ultimately, these players all did move on, but a lot of the time they did stay because of Eddie Howe. And that's all the mould that they're looking at. Even though they won't be going in from Eddie Howe, it'll be difficult to get him away from Newcastle. But there has also been sort of, there's been... they've been happy with the recruitment of other backroom staff, sort of sports scientists in there as well, and they will still want to continue to employ the best in class. I think was Scott Duxbury's words. And again, I think if we have sort of that long-term manager in place, I think there'll be sort of more of a keenness with players to stick around as well for the long term. Moving on to the next one, and again, if you've got any questions, please drop them in the comments because I'm just sort of skimming over these notes. The consequences of potential relegation. We are in a much stronger position than last time, obviously coming out the other side of the pandemic. And also, I think the fact that players now have to take a 50% wage cut if we are going to go down. So I think a lot of the players we can sort of say that they will stay. I think obviously there are a couple of players, they weren't named, but we can assume the likes of Ismaila Sarr, Emmanuel Dennis, they might cash in on. But I think it's safe to assume that a lot of them will stay. And there was a particular sort of keen, Scott Duxbury seemed keen on the likes of João Pedro still playing a key role next season. Joseph Hunger as well, they got high hopes for. And also the new guy, Asprilla. I can't remember his first name on top of my head, but Scott Duxbury was raving about him and saying that he is going to be the next big thing. So there's high hopes in there. I see there are a few questions coming through. I will take them after I've gone through the notes. Off the pitch, they still want to carry on doing the work, even if they get relegated, the trust with the NHS, etc. But obviously the aim as well, as soon as we go down, will be to get straight back up. And it was very much at points with Scott Duxbury, him talking about a case of when, not if we're relegated. So, I'm sure, I'm hoping the planning has begun. How badly did relegation and COVID affect the club finances? I'm just reading this off the club website in terms of the agenda they set out on there. They said that, look, it was a difficult time. It was a difficult moment for any EFL club, and sort of any club outside the Big Six struggled at that point without any large investment, any sort of gate receipts from fans coming in. But we did come out the other end of it. I'm not a football finance expert, I have to say. People, were asking me questions about the debt and how we're going to pay them off and that sort of thing. I've got no idea. It's not my sort of area of speciality, so I don't want to sort of give off the wrong information. We've come out the other end of the pandemic. We've still got a football club here, and ultimately that's the minimum we can ask for. Obviously, on the pitch, it has to improve and it has to be better, but the ship has steadied. if we want to say it like that. Leaving Vicarage Road. Obviously, a couple of years ago, there were talks that we'd be leaving Vicarage Road and going over to Bushy, and building a stadium there, perhaps more sort of eco-friendly as well. That didn't materialise, and that's not on the cards for now. However, there was a desire to build another tier on top of the Elton John stand, and also to do some renovations on the Graham Taylor stand as well. They said it's a matter of when, not if. So I imagine that work might start in the summer or during next season. The problem with stadium renovation as well is you don't want to keep fans out of their seats. You look at clubs like Fulham, where one of their stands has been completely empty now for a couple of years. You look at Real Madrid last night in the Champions League, their whole bottom tier was pretty much empty. You want to make sure you've still got fans in the stadium. So it'll be interesting to see how they do that, but they did say it will happen. This was something here that I found really interesting, which was someone asked about moving away from gaming firms and cryptocurrencies as our main sponsors due to sort of the moral issues surrounding perhaps, encouraging gambling, encouraging betting. And it's a really interesting one because I think in an ideal world, I think we can all admit that, if these entities and these businesses weren't worth so much, I think we would want to move away from having these businesses sponsoring Watford Football Club. However, we do need the money. And I think particularly sort of in this post-COVID world, it did very much seem that it's something they consider if an offer came in, perhaps from a, I don't want to say more ethical body, but for now it's just about getting that money in. And it also gives us that reach in China as well by being sponsored sort of by crypto and by all the various betting companies. The next one was Inside the Hive. This was another question that came in as well, in terms of the fact that people don't feel that Inside the Hive and the Thursday night show is connecting with people well enough. And the club basically said, yes, we are aware of that. And next season they're going to look to perhaps get more sort of fan involvement and things more interesting for the fans as well, perhaps with some more current players as well. The unpaid internships was something as well that was brought up, and the football club effectively, I don't want to say there's an excuse because I think there is a logic to it, but it's not post-grad. It's not post-grad. It's for people perhaps in the middle of their course. It's for people in the middle of their course. And that's why it's unpaid, because the football club believe that it's offering them something valuable for the future, and often as well, they offer interns jobs after, which are paid. So I can see a logic to it, whether that's satisfactory. I haven't reached that sort of stage in my student career yet. So I'm sure, my views will change on that in the coming years. Other matters discussed, and don't worry, I can see Uncle Ron, you're unhappy that I'm not saying anything you don't know. I'm just talking about what was said in the meeting, and I will address specific questions soon. I'm just going to go through the agenda and then I'll take questions, as I said. Other matters discussed, family stand location changes. So the first one was, this was something discussed that, a couple of people in the family stand aren't happy with being right next to the away, and particularly when you leave the ground and you're caught up sort of in, perhaps the away fans winning there a bit, some might be a bit drunk and people aren't happy with that. And the club have said, look, in an ideal world, we would move it. However, too many people would be unhappy about moving their seats, but they did mention perhaps a bigger divide between the away end and the home end. Stadium facilities, there's an ambition to build perhaps more family-friendly toilets in the stadium as well. Hornets Ambassadors was discussed as well. Luther Blissett was discussed, and they are keen to get Luther Blissett involved. It's a complicated one with Luther Blissett. And the club have said that they do want to get Luther Blissett involved. Women's football, they want to get the women playing more games at Vicarage Road to sort of, gain more publicity. And the community trust was a question that I asked after I did some work up close with the community trust as well. Something, again, they want to expand throughout Hertfordshire. So that's basically very briefly what was discussed in the meeting, as we see from the agenda that the club released last night at 7:00. And I will happily go through your questions now. This is effectively what we were told the meeting would be like, that we'd go to the meeting, we'd be able to share what was said with all of you here. We didn't anticipate the wait or 2 weeks or whatever it was between the meeting and the notes coming out. And that's where some members of the committee are unhappy with the football club. So let's have a look at the first one. So, Sam, my question isn't about the committee as opposed to just the general one. Watford fans turning against each other right now is unlike a level I've ever seen before. Would you agree? It's such a shame. Yeah, I would. And I know perhaps this isn't the question people want. I will get down to more perhaps committee-specific meetings. But I think results on the pitch don't help things at all. I think off the pitch, people look for scapegoats, such as members of the committee. And that's why I think, in a way, being in the Championship, I am excited for it in a way. We'll be more. I'm not saying it's a given we'll go up or be in the playoffs, that sort of thing, but I think we will be more competitive. We'll certainly win more football games than we have this season, and also some really enjoyable away games, which should increase morale. So I think it's just a case of waiting for things on the pitch to change before things off the pitch change as well. So Lou Warren's asked, the debt answer is worrying. Comparing it to a mortgage, which is something completely different to what the situation is. If your no fallback option is to, you put correction, didn't mean to put no there. If your fallback option is to sell half the squad, that's not sustainable. Well, again, as I'll say, I know this isn't the answer you're looking for. This isn't me hiding things. I'm just football finances is not my expertise. I'm sure there's other people at the meeting there who happily address that in more detail, what Emiliano said. But as I said, I think there is a 50% wage cut that players have to take. And I think every player has to take that without exception. It's in their contracts now. So, yeah, I'm sorry again, that's not the answer that you wanted. But I'm not an expert in this, and I don't want to give off the wrong information. So, did they apologise for anything? Yes, there was a slight apology in there. Apologies for making mistakes. I'll just clarify again, whatever Scott Duxbury says now from this point, particularly with the last fans forum last year, I'll only believe anything when it actually happens. And ultimately, we haven't seen any sort of changes on the pitch from the last relegation season. So it's not a case of me not accepting that apology or fans not accepting that apology. We want to see change, and that's what we want to see on the football pitch and from the football club. So yes. Ellis says, part of me would cash in on Dennis purely because of how little we paid for him from Bruges. Yeah, so I think they were keen to keep hold of Dennis as well. They were telling us how much of a character he is and sort of his relationships in the dressing room as well. People seem to quite like him. He's quite a lively character. But it wouldn't shock me as well if the right offer came in, perhaps we would cash in. But there was no specific information on there. Did they mention Ben Foster messing about on YouTube and what the club thought about that? No, we thought there were more important things to discuss than that. Moji Bayat was not mentioned in there, and it's something that I've sort of got on my list, something that I will bring up in the next meeting. I can guarantee you that. Anything discussed about goalkeepers? Ben Foster going to stay or retire? Batman going to be sold? So we have a first choice goalie in the Championship. So nothing about Foster or Batman were mentioned. I think we can assume both of them will leave. I think Foster stated his desire to leave, and Daniel Bachman has stated his desire to leave as well. Scott Duxbury was very keen to talk about Okoye and how good of a goalkeeper he is. So I imagine he will be the first choice goalkeeper in the Championship next season. Did anyone ask about? No, as I said already. Did anyone ask any uncomfortable questions that Duxbury refused to answer? No, there were uncomfortable questions asked that Duxbury was sort of, you could see he felt a bit uncomfortable at points, but there was no point where he refused to answer. I don't think anyone around that table would have let him refuse to answer. Just have a look at that one. I don't understand this thing about introducing younger players just to appease boo boys. If the manager, whoever it may be at the time, doesn't fancy a player, then he shouldn't be forced to play him. And I agree with that. I don't think you should put in youth players for the sake of youth players. I think the problem is we're not producing any talent compared to other football clubs. And that is a problem. And it's a question about the academy. Why can't we produce any good talent? And that's where sort of improvements in the academy need to come in. Sam, head coach next season. Did they say they might consider a young, hungry coach who might be currently employed by someone else? So they didn't mention the latter in terms of being currently employed by someone else, but I very much get the impression young, hungry coach is what they're looking for here. And hopefully, in my words, a project manager as well, someone who can oversee a longer project. Just going to look down. Sorry about this. Sorry about this. This is my first time as well going live by myself. So, Cucho is out for the season, Roy said today. So a couple of junior Hornets or at the junior Hornets event today did message me and say Cucho is out for the season. So be interesting to see sort of, I'll wait for confirmation on that. Charlotte said from I think that you're assuming you're referring to from the Rookery, and also discussed the committee on the podcast. Great the representations like WT and from the Rookery are involved. So the structure does leave the fan of the street rather out in the cold. I completely agree, Charlotte. As I say, I'm currently drawing up a plan which I will present to the football club to get more fans involved. However, I do say again that you can get involved by emailing supporters@watfordfc.com, and they are keen to get more fans involved. But I am sort of finding a more formal way of getting more fans involved as well, which I will give to the club. Let me have a look. Here, okay, GT official. I don't know so much about not being able to produce as opposed to letting them go too early. I'm not saying Jadon Sancho, the likes of Britson Belonga got sold very early in his career, and that's exactly as well. That's sort of where it comes down to there not being a clear pathway in the youth academy as well, because effectively without a manager in there having sort of a clear style of playing and a clear strategy, it's difficult for players to sort of break through as well, because they think, why on earth would I stay when there's a manager who doesn't necessarily believe in me, who won't use me, when they're all fighting for their jobs from minute one? There won't be any trust in you. Therefore, players will sort of want to leave. There's also a problem as well with sort of money, I think, from the higher clubs like Man City, Chelsea, etc. They can simply purchase these players and give their families money. So it's sort of, I think, also a wider question in football as well in terms of academies. Opinions on Roy not playing Kalou. Thought he was very decent when he made his debut. Our players have wrong mentality, so something needs to change ASAP. I agree with you. I think I think we might as well change it. We might as well change it up because the current team isn't working. And I think, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing 11 different players to the ones we saw against Leeds. Why is it being kept secret if Cucho is out for the season? It's not being kept secret. They just haven't released team news yet for the weekend, and they might still be assessing him. I don't know. And it's clearly not being kept secret as well if Junior Hornets being told about it. How do we ensure the right questions are asked that the vast majority want to hear? And will those asking confirm to do so even if they don't feel comfortable asking? Again, this is something that I'm very keen to work on with the football club. I think that what probably should have happened was, and this is something that I want to propose, is that we should have been allowed to tell all of you, WD18, all our viewers, everyone, all the representatives there, should be able to ask their sort of fan bases. I don't want to say fan bases, but their audiences to ask questions. And for example, the top 5 questions that come up, or the top 5 suggestions that come up, would be the questions that we ask. If that makes sense. That's something that I'm going to propose to the football club, that we're allowed to consult with all of you when there is a meeting and sort of take all of your questions. I'm not sure if you're happy with that. Without revealing the redacted answers, could you reveal the question of interest that weren't listed? I'm trying to think now, because it was 2 weeks ago. There wasn't anything really of interest. There was a question about perhaps positions they want to strengthen on, and there's an acceptance in there that the defence hasn't been good enough yet again this season. The goalkeeper area, such as Ben Foster, Daniel Batman, they're excited for Okoye to come in next season. If I think of it, I'm trying to think. I don't think there were any that weren't at least mentioned on the document, or that sort of haven't been briefly covered at least. I really didn't like that word redacted as well, because I feel like a lot of the stuff of note was answered as well in it. If not, at least briefly. And I personally can't remember any other of the questions that were asked. Yes, correct. I'm guessing the complications regarding Luther you can't answer due to confidentiality. Correct, yes. It's being sorted. I'll just say that it's being sorted. But I'm sure you can all respect, for, as I say, full confidentiality reasons, we're not allowed to share that information. And as I say, if you want to sort of get in on that information, ask supporters at watfordfc.com, and you can attend the next one, hopefully. It looks like very tame questions were asked. Uncle Wrong, as I said, you've been quite vocal on this. and others as well saying it was quite tame questions asked. I'm looking for a way of getting more football fans, more Watford fans involved here in terms of getting more Watford fans to be able to ask questions instead of keeping the meeting secret. But also, I'm trying to think what else would have been asked, to be honest. I'm sure there are other questions, but, you know, some people expect massive revelations like Scott Duxbury to come out and resign after being forced by the committee. That was never going to happen. It was a really informal event. And as I say as well, if you're unhappy with the questions asked, just email support@watfordfc.com and try and join in with the next one. Everyone here agrees Sarr needs to go. We would have loved 40 million for him. Not worth it now. Yeah, it's so I'm trying the best way to think of answering it, because I'm also sort of reading the comments at the same time. Normally Jake was able to read the sort of that able to read it at the same time. Jacob does it for me, but yeah, I think it's probably time to cash in on him. Anything about players on loan being involved next year? Yes, there is sort of a nothing specifics in terms of it's sort of well. I think it's clear. Duxbury did make it clear that particularly Joseph Hungbo, they want him involved next season. Philip Zinkernagel and Domingos Kina weren't mentioned in there, but I'm sure, you know, it's something that we can follow up on in the next meeting as well. I'm astounded that so many parties are invited. No one saw it fit to ask a question about the level of business we do with Moji buyout. Surely it should have been one of the first questions. I'll be honest, I don't know myself enough about the Moji buyout situation, so I didn't want to I felt uncomfortable asking that question. That's why, again, I agree there needs to be sort of a wider representation of fans there, because when people sort of can sort of have that knowledge about Moji buyout, then they can follow up with the questions with the board about that. I didn't feel comfortable, so I don't know enough about the situation, but it's something I intend on learning about myself, and I will ask it at the next one. If not another fan, I'm sure will ask it. No one asked why Sarr didn't give his all for Senegal but not for Watford. It's quite frustrating. Sam, how are you feeling on a personal note, as you have quite a lot of unnecessary flack in the last few days? Head up, great job, mate, fair play. Thank you, JD, really appreciate that. I mean, you can probably see I am quite exhausted. You can probably see from my eyes. It's been a tiring few days with the football club as well. It's been a difficult situation that we've all been sort of thrown under the bus with, and a difficult one to deal with as well. People need to sort of remember that everyone on the committee, every single person in there, has the best interests of Watford Football Club at heart. No one went in there with bad intentions, and we all sort of want, we all want the best for the football club. And there are ways, you know, that as I said, I'll repeat it again. I'm looking for ways of getting more fans involved and getting more people in that room as well. If you look at sort of the unpleasant stuff, not just said to me, but to other people at the football club as well. On the committee as well. I think it's clear as well why the club don't want certain individuals there. And I think you've got a minority who are ruining it for the rest of the people. But as I say as well, hopefully this is the start of a positive communication with the club. I have said if I'm not happy next time, then I will review my position on the committee. But yeah, I suppose time will tell with that. But I will say as well on here, just for good record, just for good record, that I won't, you know, change for anything here. I'll carry on talking about my own life situation. My mental health. I think it's important to be quite vocal about that. I've had quite a lot of stick for that on social media over the last few days, just for being on the committee. And yeah, it's been a difficult few days because of that. David Wallace asks, did you ask when the red shorts will return? No one did ask that. I am a big fan of red shorts, to be honest, and I would not be opposed. But as I said, I'll happily ask that next time. Hopefully the next video we do about the fans committee will be able to tell you people. Hopefully, the next video we do about this will effectively allow us to ask all of you your questions before we attend the fans forum as well. Not fans forum, the committee meeting as well, and we can sort of get everyone's, you know, perhaps your top 5, top 10 questions, or we can go and ask that. Moji buyout will be the top of my agenda for the next one as well. I can assure you that, and I apologise, it was not asked in there. My @is over there. Yeah, over there. Sorry. Please just find me over any questions on Twitter. Yeah, I've gone private, so just drop me a request and I will answer them. But for now, sorry, it's my first ever live video as well, so it's quite difficult multitasking with all of it. But thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all soon up the Watford.